Hello, and welcome to Leave a Light On podcast, a show that looks to tackle the everyday struggles in our everyday lives. It's time to shed some light on it. Leave a Light On podcast is not a licensed mental health service and shouldn't be substituted for professional advice or treatment. Things discussed in this podcast are general in nature and may be of a sensitive nature. If you're struggling, please seek professional help or contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. Here's your hosts, Shane and Chev.
Yo, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening to us in the world. I am Shane, one half of Leave a Light On podcast, and my other half is Chev. Hello, Chev.
Hey, welcome. This is awesome. Another episode.
Another
Keen
one,
as.
yeah. Beautiful weather as well. So
It is. It's really good. I'm starting to have some good feelings about the spring coming.
Yeah,
it's good.
absolutely.
Warmer weather, beers all around. Happy days.
And you got a singlet, obviously.
I do.
Yeah.
Get my guns out.
Yeah, guns out. I mean, they're only pistols, but I mean, let's get them out.
Hey, and that's a good segue into who our next guest is. So,
Great
talking
segue.
about pistols.
Good job.
So,
that deserves a little. Good job.
You're damn right.
Yeah, well done.
So our guest, let's introduce.
Let's introduce our guest. Well, Chev, this is
this is
big
awesome.
for you because I'm going to leave this one up to you today for the first time.
This is you got to crawl before you walk.
You get to introduce our guest today. So, Chev, before you get into it,
Yeah.
this is a little one for you.
Good stuff.
Go for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Introduce our guest.
So our guest today is pretty cool. Is Mel McLachlan.
Welcome, Mel McLachlan. Yeah.
Really keen.
Yeah. When we were going through it in the beginning with Mel, I was like, I can either just give you like a standard applause.
Yep.
Or the other one obviously would have been which was quite interesting because it's kind of like counteractive to what she did, but I still think she's a gangster.
That's awesome.
So it was either the applause or the gangster music. And I'm going to go with the gangster one. So
She is probably the one that pulled up those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which
Pull your pants up, you idiot.
You're going to tell us why.
You're not a gangster.
But first of all, welcome, Mel. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with us.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
As discussed, it's not Melissa or it's not Melanie.
No.
And it's not Rachel either.
And it's not Rachel either.
The listeners will find out that later.
Yeah, it was great. So good to have you on the podcast. And we're going to hear, obviously, a little bit about your career and what you did.
Yep.
So, Chev, tell us, who is Mel?
All right, Shane's giving me the reins today. I'm going to crawl before I walk and see how we go with it. So, feedback would be awesome.
Yeah, let's go.
So, in 2000, Mel embarked on what would be a career spending 18 years with the New South Wales Police Force. She graduated from the Police Academy and she then moved into police rescue and did a course. In 2006, she moved to an investigation position and then eventually moved into covert intelligence unit.
Well done, because you initially said COVID.
Well,
no, that wasn't around in 2006 and 2007.
Well, it could have been. No, it's all good. So then in 2011, she was promoted to a sergeant, which is really awesome. And then in 2018, she retired from the New South Wales Police Force due to being medically unfit. So that's roughly what we got for our guest today. And just reading what she's got here, it seems like she's had a hell of a career.
A hell of a career, yeah. Well, firstly, welcome to the podcast, Mel, as we've said. And secondly, thank you, obviously, for the service that you did.
Yeah, definitely.
Within the police force.
Thank you.
I think, as we discussed, I don't think police officers get enough credit for what they did. And obviously, your 18 years span in that, it's a long time to dedicate your life.
It is. It is a very long time.
Yeah, and I was blown away at some of the stories we've discussed, which we'll get into in the podcast. But I just want to say from our side, thank you so much for your service. It's very easy to, obviously, like we said, when it comes to the military, they get a lot of credit for what they do, even after their service in it, whereas police officers tend to kind of just be forgotten about. So we want to honor you and say thank you so much for your service in that, and thank you so much for just dedicating a lot of your time and your efforts into just helping people. And I think that's why, when I said to you, why did you get into the police force? You said, well, it's pretty cliche, but you just wanted to help people.
That's exactly right. I thought I could help people and I could change the world and it'd be a better place. I went in with my eyes open and quickly closed them.
I mean, it's such a beautiful thing to go in and be like, I just want to help people. And then you realize that, I mean, the world is such a crazy place. And the stuff that you encounter then kind of changes your perceptions from just helping people to like, how can I just make a difference, really?
100%. How can I make a difference? How can I survive in this environment? What do I need to do to make it a better place for not only the people, but yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back all the way to 2000 where you started. You started out in, obviously, rescue. Tell us about that a little bit and that journey of coming into the rescue.
Yeah, so I obviously finished with the police academy and was stationed in the Blue Mountains at the latter end of 2001. I did 12 months in general duties before I was asked one day if I wanted to go on the police rescue course. I'd never had any interest in it whatsoever, had no idea what they did, just they were these fancy white trucks in the driveway. Anyway, one of the guys that was due to go on the course actually broke his leg, and so a position came up. So they were like, Mel, do you want to go on this course? I'm like, oh, yeah, sounds cool. What do I have to do? Well, come out the back. We'll get you to jump off the roof, climb under the building, and then cut a car apart and make sure you can handle it. Righto, this sounds interesting. Off I go out the back, jump off the roof, climb under the building, and cut a car apart. So then I went off and successfully completed the rescue course. And at that time, I was one of only 8 females that had ever done the course successfully.
That's huge. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So finished the course, headed back to the Blue Mountains where I started doing both police rescue and general duties. So police rescue was like a part-time gig. So you'd drive around in your normal 2-tone blues doing general duties. So that's any calls that come in. And then if a rescue call came in, you'd effectively get changed on the side of the road into your white overalls and off you'd go and you'd do the rescue job. So I did that for a few years. I guess during that time, I obviously saw a lot and I attended a lot of jobs, and a lot of those jobs were to do with people that had committed suicide, self-harmed. And I often wondered back then why people would do that in the Blue Mountains. But someone told me at some point that it was actually because it was such a scenic and beautiful place that people went there to be at peace with their life. And I guess looking back at that kind of makes sense to a degree.
Because it's a stunning place to be.
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
So over the next, I think it was 18 months, I attended a lot of jobs, and there was one job in particular that I went to. It was a suicide mid-mountains on the train line. And I remember that afternoon, and I still remember it clear as day today. I'd spent some time under a train collecting body parts and bagging them like as respectfully as you can. And I'd come out and come up to the command area, and I was covered in like railway dust and blood and whatever else, and I was carrying gear. And I remember that day the duty officer that was on patted me on the back and was like, "You'll be right, Mel. You're in rescue. You're on call tonight, so clean yourself up and off you go home." And I kept doing that stuff, and like I continued to see a lot of stuff, but I started to look then to where I was going to go next. And I decided at that time I wanted a new challenge, and I was going to move on. I was going to become a detective. And if I look back at it now, the reason why I think I wanted to become a detective was because I was being conditioned to being okay. That I needed to be okay with everything I was seeing, and I needed to be okay with what I was feeling with what I was seeing. So the best thing to do was to run away to the next opportunity and see what I could achieve next.
When you say you were being conditioned, who was doing the conditioning?
The police force as a whole, back then, so we're talking back in 2002, no one spoke about how they felt. So no one spoke about the impacts that anything had on them. So if you went to a deceased or a suicide or a murder even, you didn't talk about how it impacted you. You had a joke with your colleagues, you went home, you came back the next day and you continued on with the job. That's as a whole, everyone conditioned you to be okay.
And that's exactly what me and Shane are trying to do, is obviously shed that light on so you guys know to speak up. You know, it's not weak to speak, and we want to shine the light on you guys and what you guys see every day.
Yeah. Did you guys have any tools that the police force had back in 2002 that helped when it came to obviously the horrific things that you as a police did see?
Look, there was obviously there was a peer support program, which I was a peer support officer, so you could do a course to support people, but really at the end of the day, you were still just one of their colleagues. And then they did bring in the employee assistance program. So that's a program where a lot of workplaces have it. You can call up, you can speak to a psychologist, you get some free sessions. But there was a stigma in the police where if you called that assistance line, what was going to happen to you? Were they going to report back to the police? Were you going to be taken off the duties you were doing? How was it going to be perceived? Was it going to affect you in the future? Like, were you going to get promoted or was it going to be on your record? So there was a lot of unknowns back then as to how that worked. So a lot of people were really reluctant to talk about it.
Jeez, yeah. I think even just still today, I feel like that stigma still applies, where people feel like because they're seeking help, it immediately puts them at the back foot of their current job or position that they're doing, because people feel that, oh, well, look, so-and-so is going to counselling, so we can't promote them because they're barely getting by with what they're doing now, for instance. Whereas no one knows what's happening in their personal life at home or their personal circumstances, or even like you say, with a particular case. Every case was so different.
Yeah.
So you might go to a murder case today and then murder case tomorrow, and the murder case tomorrow will be completely different to the murder case you're in today. So it's such a stigma where we're saying like it shouldn't be judged on the fact that, oh, well, because they're seeking help, they can't get further in the career or something like that. So I feel like that's such a key thing that you said there, where it was such a stigma for people to be like, well, people are going to view me different, or they're going to judge me different, or so therefore instead of getting the help I need, I'm just going to kind of keep quiet and just plod along.
Keep quiet and change direction.
Yeah.
That's, I think if I look back at my career now, and I achieved a lot and I went to a lot of places, but I think reflecting, I was changing direction to avoid what was happening to me.
I mean, you've changed direction so many times as we went through in your bio there.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine when it did start to get to that point where you're trying to like grapple with the hardships of the job, that you were just like, well, I'll just kind of change direction and move to a different one and now handle other.
Exactly. Handle new challenges and something different, something interesting. So then you put what's been happening sort of on the back burner until it comes up again, and then you change direction again.
Yeah. All right. So you moved obviously from the rescue side of things in 2005?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
So 2005, as I said, I'd been doing rescue and general duties. And look, I loved the Blue Mountains. I loved the people and I loved the work at the end of the day. But I got to that point and I was like, okay, I want to be a detective. I want to do investigations. I want to get into the nitty-gritty of, okay, well, this has happened. Where's the end game? And I spoke to Sheb before the episode, and he's a Law and Order buff, and I explained.
I am indeed. When I had my first conversation with you, I was like, so into it because I'm a massive like crime buff. So I thought you'd be interesting, and I instantly thought of Law and Order.
So I can confirm no case is generally solved in 50 minutes.
Okay, fair enough.
Including all of the forensics.
Yeah.
So most of the time that does take months or weeks.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
So I was successful in getting a position down at the Professional Standards Command. So for people that don't know what that is, that's actually a command that investigates police as well as other crimes. So it worked in conjunction with the Crime Commission as well.
Oh, so you're part of the Rat Squad.
I was the Rat Squad.
Internal Affairs.
Wow, that must have been very interesting.
It was very interesting. Being able to work with Internal Affairs or Professional Standards Command and the Crime Commission, you got the best of or the worst of the bad stuff in the cops, but also the organised crime that was happening with the Crime Commission.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so whilst I was there, I had the opportunity to get my detective's designation. So I went and got that. And then some more opportunities came my way in the form of undercover work. So I was offered the opportunity to do the street level operatives course. And I thought, you know what? Great, like this is exciting. Like let me at this. What am I going to do? So I went and did the street level operatives course, and so that's your low level purchase of drugs. So I had an assumed identity. I'd dress up as a prostitute or a homeless person or whatever it was on the day. I'd hang out at a train station. I'd buy drugs.
That is pretty cool.
So It was
That
fun.
is awesome, man. That is awesome.
I mean, it's so interesting because like
Yeah,
you see this,
28th.
you see it in a movie, but you don't realize that it's real. Like people do this.
Yeah.
And like you say, like you're literally trying to protect your identity while you're going out there and like, posing to be a prostitute or a drug buyer or something like that.
Yeah, I remember I was at one of the Western train stations in Sydney. I had this dodgy stroller and I think it had a beer carton in it, an empty beer carton and newspapers and all of this other crap. And I was just buying drugs. It was fun. It was some of the best times of my life.
Wow.
That's pretty.
That's insane.
awesome.
So I got a taste of that at that street level, operative level, and an opportunity came up. It was probably about 12 months later to do the full-on undercover program.
Is that where you pretty much under for months?
Yeah. So those jobs are prolonged jobs, and they're not your street level stuff. So that's your mid to higher level stuff. You're driving a decent car. You've got hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's business. It's not.
Yeah.
You're not a junkie. You're not trying to get a hit. You're
going after the dealers.
That's right.
Yeah, the
you
actual
want to buy
kingpins.
quantity because you want to on-sell it.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that kind of work all over the state and loved it. Like it was certainly a highlight of my career, but also some of the jobs didn't go as they should have. There was one particular job I was out doing a buy in the western suburbs of Sydney, and I ended up I dealt with the guy a number of times. We'd met at a shopping centre, we'd met in a car park, and then on the day that I was going to buy, I needed to go to an apartment block. And I went by myself, which was absolutely normal. You generally wore a wire so that your team could hear what was going on. And I remember I parked basically at a park. So it was like a big open field. There was kids playing soccer like it was suburbia. And I walked across the road and I walked down this driveway, and the driveway was probably sort of a level below street level. And that was just because like the car parking was underneath the apartment. So I'd walked down the driveway and then I'd ended up in a stairwell. It was a concrete stairwell. So that then reduced any communication I had with the outside world because I was obviously surrounded by concrete and steel. And when I entered that stairwell, that's when I knew things were not okay. The guy that I'd been dealing with was there. But there was also a whole lot of other people there as well. There was a guy there with a firearm. There was a couple of guys above me, a couple to the side of me, and the guy that I was talking to about doing the deal. So at that point, you have to identify, and I apologise for swearing, but how the fuck am I getting out of here?
Yeah.
And how am I getting out of here alive? And I want the drugs too. Like, let's not forget why I'm here.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's that two, in your head, it's like the fight or flight, but
100%.
It's like, how do I get out safely, but how do I complete the job at the same time?
How can I run quick enough to not get shot, but where are my drugs?
You're not normal, Mel.
So I remember standing there, and this is going through my head, and I'm talking, and I'm talking about the piece that I can see, and I'm describing it, and I'm like, why have you got a piece? Like, seriously, mate, we're in a stairwell. Who's going to get us in a stairwell? And the reason I was talking about that was so that my team knew that this was not good. And at that point, I had no idea that they couldn't hear me. So I'm like, I'll just keep talking. I'm going to talk my way out of this. This is my weapon. I'm going to just keep talking. Anyway, so it was clearly just a test. He never held it to my head or anything like that. I eventually got my drugs and I got the fuck out of there. Wandered back across the road nice and casually, got back in the car, went back to my team, gave them what I needed to give them, gave them a description. And that then started a roller coaster of debriefs and what happened in there and what was going on and how they were then going to coordinate getting in there to obviously secure that weapon and any other drugs and stuff. So that was, I guess, another turning point in my career.
I can imagine. Maybe anyone's turning point. Jeez.
I didn't give up Undercover.
Yeah.
I still kept doing it. But I did start seeing a counsellor and a psychologist just so that I could go, yeah, no, I am okay with that. Like in my head I was okay, but was I really okay? So, that was the beginning of my undercover career. Sorry, I just keep talking.
No,
that's all right.
That's
Go for it.
incredible. Like, honestly, it's honestly like the things that you hear or see in movies.
The whole time she was talking, I was thinking about like Detective Benson from Law and Order, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing stuff.
I literally just had this movie. Like, your guys are out in like an ice cream van or like a laundry van outside with like
Laundry
this
van.
like,
Literally.
truck.
Wow.
All the audio stuff, going, oh, we can't hear you. We've lost the audio. And you just going in there and being like, yeah, okay, guys, let's go. I want my drugs. And,
Yeah.
so insane. Like, just the thought of like that actually being a reality must be just frightening. Like you say, you've got to be trained quite well.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, the panic sets in and you just want to bail.
Yeah.
Because it's literally just, like you say, that fight or flight where you're just like, I'm just panicking and I can't show it on the outside. I've got to be so calm and collected.
Yeah.
They obviously didn't frisk you either.
No.
Like you would have got. Did you get frisked and stuff like that? Like,
Look, every
like
now
drug
and then you
dealers and
would.
stuff?
Every now
Yeah.
and then people would touch you
Okay.
just to see. But, the technology that's out there now, it's not like you're walking around with a mobile phone strapped to your chest or something.
No, that's true. I just figured being drug dealers and all that, they would have done stuff, especially with the peace and all
I
that.
had, you build quite a good rapport with people before you get to that level. So, like the guy that I was meeting there, I'd met with him a number of times. I talked to him on the phone a number of times. Like, we had that rapport, and I was one of them. But obviously, to the other people there, I was someone new being introduced. So, it's just
Do you ever worry about the aftermath of something like that, like them finding out, like after, let's just say they get busted and they get arrested, obviously you would have had to have then compile the case against them.
That all comes in about 2012.
Okay, we'll get there.
Yes, we absolutely will.
Yeah, okay. So obviously, like you said, went into the covert intelligence side of things, went into the undercover.
So I kept doing that. I was doing that on a part-time basis as well. So I was doing my investigation stuff and the undercover work as cases come up. It was kind of you get offered a job. If you could get released, you'd go do the job. If you couldn't get released, then you'd go to the next one. But part of my detective training when I was at Professional Standards Command was that I needed to go back out into the real world, I guess you could say. And I selected Mount Druitt to go back into the real world because
you selected it
I
voluntarily.
selected Mount Druitt.
Okay.
It sounded like you had your work cut out for you going there.
Well, I think it's quite funny. I mean, you and I talking about beginning. You've got a real like rescue mentality about you.
I do.
And so you probably look at like the worst in terms of situations and go, I can fix that. I can sort that out. So you looked at Mount Druitt and said, I can go there and make a difference.
Yeah, I can go there, I can make a difference, but I can have fun too. I was still young. I was still young and stupid, I suppose you could say. And I was like, Mount Druitt, that's where I'm going to go. There's great jobs at Mount Druitt. Like if you're a detective cutting your teeth into the detective world, that's where you want to go because that's where stuff's happening.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go to some sleepy town where nothing happens because I'm going to be bored doing fraud cases.
Yeah.
Who wants to do that?
You want to be in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
At this stage, obviously in 2006, we've got up to now. What was your personal life like at this stage? Because obviously you were putting a lot into your career.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had a few failed relationships already by that point because I always put my career first. And especially with the covert work, I found people couldn't handle not knowing where I was. So I would go away. I might only go away for a weekend. I might go away for a week, but they wouldn't know where I'm going. They wouldn't know who I'm with. They wouldn't know when I'm going to be back. They wouldn't know if I'd call. So that put a lot of strain on relationships. So,
Was that because of obviously that was for their protection?
my protection.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone's protection, I suppose, to a degree, because
Yep.
if they then linked my undercover identity back to my real identity, then that then put everybody around me at risk
Okay.
as well. So, so everybody's protection. So I was, failed relationships, primarily single. I was living in the western suburbs, but look, I was having a great time.
So I suppose, like you say, you take all the energy that you would normally pour into your personal life and you pour it into your career. And I suppose that's, like you say, why you achieved as much as you did.
Yeah. So
sacrificed one for the other.
That's it.
Do you look back now and regret that?
I do look back and I don't regret what I've done because it makes me the person that I am, but I do have regrets for the person I've become that has then given me the life that I have. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I feel like what you're trying to say there is like the circumstances that you've gone through have made you the person you are, and you're very proud of the person you are. But at the same time, you wish you could have maybe done it differently, where you didn't have to sacrifice as much as you did in order to be the person you are today.
Yeah. So you do wake up some days and look at your life and go, why wasn't I just that like admin chick with the white picket fence, the 2 kids and the dog, and the husband? Like, that seems so simple.
Yeah.
Definitely not exciting. Very simple.
With the flower bed garden.
Absolutely. Actually, I'm not a very good with plants, so maybe not.
Fair enough.
The dog probably would have ate them.
So obviously you went to Mount Druitt.
I did.
And you would have seen some incredibly
I did.
wonderful situations.
It was a great time of my life. I learnt a lot. I saw a lot. I guess it's probably the 5% of society, and that 5% is everywhere, not just Mount Druitt, but it's the 5% of society that no one should ever have to deal with.
Why do you think that Mount Druitt particularly has that attached to it?
I think it's developed from what it was, but back then it was very much central to a lower socioeconomic society. There was a lot of alcohol, there was a lot of drug use, and a lot of unemployment. So it sort of, I guess, fed off each other. And in the lower socioeconomic and housing commission clusters, they were clusters of those people. So that crime fed within it. And then obviously they had kids, they didn't know any different, they grew up in that environment, and that crime just continued. I haven't been to Mount Druitt for a very long time now, so I think it has improved. But back then, that's what it was. But as much as it was like that, it wasn't safe, but it was, because you knew that when you went to a job, you were more likely to get punched in the face than shot.
Yeah, you kind of had that expectation already, hey? So it wasn't like you were going to be surprised by something, like you say. You went there with the expectation that was something that was dangerous,
But you probably weren't going to get stabbed or shot.
Okay.
You might have, but it was lower than, say, if you were in Auburn or somewhere like that.
Okay. It's very interesting that you kind of, because people would have the stigma, obviously, saying, oh, it was such a dangerous place. But I suppose if you go there with the mindset that it is dangerous and you're prepared in those situations.
But at the end of the day, too, everywhere's dangerous. Everywhere has a pocket or a street or a group of people in that suburb. There's always going to be a 5% everywhere.
Okay.
You just don't see it.
Yeah.
You live in Singo, eh?
Yes.
So I've done for 34 years. So you know just as much as I do. We've got our fair share of streets.
We definitely have some streets.
Definitely.
Good old Singleton. There's wonderful people in Singleton.
There is.
Shout out to all our Singleton people out there.
100% Mel's there.
Yeah.
And I'm there.
Yeah. I'm not in Singleton, but shout out to the Singleton people. You guys are great.
We go all right.
Okay, so you obviously then moved on. What do you think was because you obviously said there was always a moment at each position that then kind of changed the compass for you. What was the moment in this particular then role that then said, okay, well, I can't do this anymore, I'm done?
So just I never said I can't do it anymore, I'm done. It was more of if I look at it now, yes, I probably in my mind was subconsciously saying that. But I
wanted a new challenge.
Yeah, there was one particular job that will stay with me. It'll stay with me forever. Most jobs stay with you forever, but this one in particular, I remember I'd been out we'd been out on a team thing the night before, and I got a phone call early in the morning, woke me up, and I was like, hey, they were like, hey, Mel, we need you to come into work. And I'm like, why? It's my day off. Like, what's happened that's so bad? Why can't you deal with this? No, there's been a murder. We need all hands on deck. Yeah, rightio. Give me half an hour and I'll come in. So I arrived at the station and was told then that there'd been a stabbing. It was a young mother, and off you go. We need to get this sorted. We've got a suspect, but we need you out at the crime scene. I went out to the crime scene and saw her there. She'd been stabbed 42 times. She'd been at her home. She'd been in bed. She was with her partner, and it was an ex-boyfriend that had decided, I can't have you, so no one can. So I remember we worked that job for days, and I went from the crime scene back to the station, and then I had to go to the morgue. And there was that point when I was at the morgue with the doctor, and the doctor was doing the examination, and she was talking to this deceased female, and she was telling her what she was doing. So for every one of the 42 stab wounds, she was like, so she'd say her name, I'm just going to measure this one. Now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to do that. And I remember sitting there thinking, what did I do in my life to be sitting here watching this happening? Well, I know I want to help people, but what have I done wrong? And I guess that was the next point where I've gone, I need out of Mount Druitt. Where am I going to go next? So, but I finished that investigation. We arrested the offender. He was sentenced, but there's still that young child that's never going to have a mother. And that was the next turning point, I think, for me. And headed to the covert intelligence unit.
So you're like, I'm done with detective work now, thank you.
No, not done with it. Just I'm going to move locations.
I'm going to move locations.
Yeah.
And then
that's something.
Yeah, from there you went to St. Mary's, is that correct?
No, so I went back to the covert intelligence unit for a little while.
Yeah.
Did some more investigation work there where I was doing surveillance. Decided I'd go back undercover again for a little while. And
what was your favourite role undercover?
That's a good question.
Yeah. What was your favourite?
Did you have to wear a wig and like a mustache or something?
No mustaches. That would be really weird.
Not nowadays. Nowadays it's okay.
It's like, exactly.
Yes, no. Melanie, Melissa and Rachel had their own suitcase.
There we go. There's a Melanie, Melissa and Rachel. There we go.
Yeah, they had their own suitcase. So all the different outfits. And I loved being able to not be me. To assume the identity of someone else, to pretend that all of those things that were weighing me down from all of those jobs didn't exist anymore.
It's almost like
I was just about to say, naturally, it's like...
I'm a junkie. I just want to get high now. I'm living my best life.
Yeah. I was about to say, it's just like playing dress-ups.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So what was your favourite
That's
role?
awesome.
What was your favourite, I'll say role, what was your favourite undercover sting that you did?
The business ones. So it was the high end, like that was Melanie then. Here's your backpack of cash, here's your car, off you go into the affluent suburbs and get your gear.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was good. It was a buzz. It was a good feeling.
Was it mainly like looking for the drug side of things, or was it like
it was obviously to get to the source.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like the fraud side of things like Wolf of Wall Street.
No, I didn't do that stuff. There's a whole unit that looks after that. Mine was just sort of the periphery of
So you did a lot of stuff when it came to like the narcotics kind of industry. Like that was pretty much your drugs. All drugs.
Did you find a lot of accountants and lawyers had cocaine?
Look,
that comes with the tag. Cocaine.
I feel like that's
not particularly.
Oh, in movies,
that's dangerous to go and put that kind of tag on lawyers and accountants.
I'm telling you,
I'm sorry
in movies,
to any lawyers or accountants that just
hey, I'm telling you,
Chev needs to learn.
Close your drawer, seriously, because they've got a mirror and some
I think
cocaine.
Chev is back in the Law and Order.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you watch too many movies because let me tell you something. I dealt with many professional sportsmen in my life, and professional sportsmen are just as bad.
Are they really?
I promise you.
Oh, wow.
Every walk in life.
Every
Okay,
industry.
there you go.
yeah.
Yeah, you would
Wow.
have seen. It doesn't matter. It doesn't.
It just seems like every movie I watch is always a lawyer or an accountant.
Well, that's what they say about drugs. Drugs does when addiction happens, it doesn't discriminate.
Yeah, well,
Not
that's
at
true.
all.
That is true.
It's got nothing to do with who you are, your position in life, how much money you have. It can have you whether you have a multimillionaire or whether you have nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what we're trying to go through. Mental health. It doesn't discriminate.
Yeah, thanks. I mean,
Sorry, keep going.
yeah, sure. We'll go there.
I love our listeners.
Yes, I know you do. So yes, you obviously then went back to that side of things, and then
Yep. So I went back to that for a little while, and I wouldn't say I was bored, but I wasn't challenged like I was at Mount Druitt, and I missed that. So whilst I suppose I ran away from it to a degree to my next challenge, I missed it when I went back there. So I applied for a position at St Mary's, which is the neighbouring suburb to Mount Druitt. Couldn't get a job at Mount Druitt, so I went to the next best thing. So I started in a senior investigation position at St Mary's. So that was one of the senior detective roles. I think we were in an office of, I think there was about 10 people in that office. I built a house in one of the neighbouring suburbs. I was like, you know what? I'm going to get my life together. I'm going to settle down. I'm going to work at St Mary's. I've got this. Yeah, I didn't. So I built a house, as I said, had another failed relationship. I don't want that to be the tagline of my life.
No.
Relationships. No. So I threw myself back into work again. I experienced just as much at St Mary's as what I did at Mount Druitt. And there's two jobs from St Mary's that will stay with me. And they were both murders, and they were both of kids.
oh no,
Well, yeah, well. That
there
probably
was-
would have been the hardest cases, kid.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Regardless of what socioeconomic community you're part of, like, you're still a kid. You haven't lived your life. And they were some of the hardest jobs that I did, telling parents that their kids were dead and investigating those, and just, yes, I got to the bottom of it. Yes, I solved it, but it didn't lessen the burden that you then carried. And that's, I guess, another turning point where I started to notice that emotionally I was very closed off. So the mother that's son just got murdered got treated the same as, say, you, Chev, that just got your wallet stolen. I had zero emotion. You were all the same to me. It was a crime. To me, it was just a crime. Whereas, like, for you, your wallet stolen would have been the most horrific day of your life. And I'm like, hey, move on. Where the mother, their kid's just been murdered. Look, I'm really sorry, but I've got a job to do.
Yeah.
Like, so.
There was a procedure you had to follow.
Yeah, I'd follow that procedure, and I'd just become less and less emotionally able to give. I'd still fix things, but I had nothing left to give. But I kept going because you were conditioned. You were conditioned to be okay. And if you spoke up and said you weren't okay, you weren't going to get in trouble for it, but you also didn't know what the ramifications were going to be. Were you going to get sidelined? Were you going to get taken off the job? Were you going to – you just didn't know. And because I was so passionate about getting the jobs done, I wasn't going to be sidelined. I wasn't going to be, okay, well, Mel, you're struggling. Let's take you off that job and let's put you on these cases. No, I don't want that. I want to find out who killed this mother's son. Like, let me do my job. So that conditioning, it continued. I just kept going, until I looked for my next challenge, my next turning point.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously were chatting a bit before this, and I asked you the question. I said, do you feel that your career has desensitized you when it comes to seeing horrific things in life? And you obviously said to me, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was prime example, like you were saying there, where it was just like you looked at the situation and you said, well, I can't let my emotions get involved in this and how I feel. I have to look at it from a purely procedural kind of.
I was calculated. I was calculated every time I went out. I was calculated in how I approached things, how I communicated. Everything was a calculated move for me.
Do you feel like this was starting to then progress into your personal life?
Absolutely.
So you were starting to be more calculated in things that you're doing in your personal life, in your relationships?
Yeah. I knew at that point what I needed to do to appear to be okay and to get through life.
Okay. How did this culminate in relationships?
More failed relationships.
Yeah. Did you feel like you battled to connect emotionally with guys?
I struggled to connect to...
Or partners, should I say? Sorry.
Yeah. I struggled to connect emotionally. I struggled to let people in. I put walls up. I didn't want to be hurt, and that just progressed. So, and even now, people see the facade, I guess, of I'm strong, I'm resilient, and I can do anything. Whereas if you get past that, that's not so much who I am.
I think that's the case with most of those kind of personalities, where they come across very hard and guarded and strong and independent. A lot of those personalities are very opposite when you break through the initial barrier, where they actually want people to come in and they want someone to be there for them and allow them to see the softer side of them. And it's just they feel they can't allow that, because if I do that, like you say, I'm now making myself vulnerable, and you've seen what happens to people when they are vulnerable.
Yeah.
And you saw it more than most people did, when it came to obviously the horrific things that you did see. And I feel like, it would have been very tough for you to not blur the line between your career and then your personal life. And like you say, eventually it did.
Yeah, it did.
Kind of cross paths.
Yeah.
So you then moved on to a different role.
Yes. So I decided I was going to be a sergeant. So I was sick of being told what to do.
As we all do. Yeah.
So now you're the one that was pointing the finger.
I'm done with this.
I am the sergeant chef. You are my.
I'm going to take you to HR. We're going to go to HR.
I've done this work. I'm going to become a sergeant, and I'm going to have a little bit more control. I'm going to be able to sort of change the direction of what's going on, maybe take a bit of a step back. And so I undertook the sergeant's course and exam and stuff. That's what it was back then, and got ranked, and a position came up at Parramatta. It was a position in general duties, and I was like, I don't want to go to general duties. And then I was like, you know what? That's probably a good idea. That'll give you a step back from everything that you've been dealing with, so the complex long investigations, the murders and all of that stuff, and go to Parramatta, have a change. The next turning point.
The next turning point. You were still involved in covert operations at this stage.
Yep.
So you were sergeant and still wanting to get undercover work and stuff like that. That must be quite tough. Sorry, that must be quite tough to try and balance being a sergeant and then still wanting to do the undercover work.
This is where things started to get messy.
Okay.
I just wanted to know, in the sergeant, for people playing at home, what is involved in that to get ranked up? Like, do you do paperwork and, is there a course?
Yeah, so it's changed a number of times, and it changed a number of times while I was in the police, but I know it's changed again. So when I went through the process, you had to do an exam. And you had to do some role play stuff, and then you got ranked. And you were given a number in the ranking, and then as jobs came up, you could apply. Whoever was highest in that ranking would be successful in attaining the position.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I just wanted to find out how you...
Yeah. So I got to Parramatta, and obviously I was back in a uniform. So I was wearing two-tone blues and had a name tag that had my name on it, which was not Melanie, Melissa or Rachel.
Sergeant McLachlan.
Back then it was Sergeant Bauer. I was still a Bauer then.
Oh, you're still Bauer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, it was Sergeant Bauer, and I had to go to court. So by this stage, the offenders from the drugs and the firearm had been locked up. So they'd all been arrested.
This was the staircase one that you were telling us
the
about.
staircase. They'd all been arrested and they were due to go to court. And I had to go to court too. And my commander at the time gave me a direction that I was going to go to court in uniform, which was highly problematic because that's not who I was.
When you were undercover, exactly.
Correct.
Yes.
So he wanted me to go to court as Sergeant Bauer, not as whoever
Rachel,
I was at the time.
Melissa, or whoever it was.
Yeah. So obviously we had some concerns around that. And then about a week later, my car was torched out the front of my house. So
A week after going to court, you say?
I didn't get to court yet.
Oh, wow.
I still haven't been
Wow.
to court.
So they knew something was going down.
Yeah. So
how do
well, we assume. So
Yeah.
no one was ever convicted for the car.
Okay.
It was parked on the street.
Hopefully it was a shitty car.
Oh, it wasn't that bad. It was a Skoda. It was very like suburbish.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So it was parked on the street, you were
Yeah,
saying?
it was parked on the street out the front of my house. And I was living just outside of St Mary's, like I wasn't living anywhere too exciting. And someone had thrown a brick through the window and set it on fire. And I didn't even notice. So I was so wrapped up in my own world, I didn't even notice. I'd been drinking with a friend, I'd gotten home, I'd gone to bed, I got up the next day, I went to get in the car and was like, okay, this is not okay. So I rang the local station, which was St Mary's, which I'd obviously worked at before. They came around and an investigation happened. Nothing ever came of that investigation. But I went through a period then of I was trying to deal with what's going on. Like, how do I deal with this? And I remember an inspector came to my house to talk to me about security. And I was like, yeah, okay. I'm like, well, what are you going to do for me? Like, my car just got blown up. Well, we can't identify an offender, so there's really nothing we can do for you. So you probably just need to be a bit vigilant. If anyone's following you or something seems amiss, then give us a call.
That was it?
That was it. I was like,
Wow.
okay then. Yeah, that instills so much confidence in me. Right, so my bedroom was at the front of the house. I didn't sleep in my bedroom for a little while because I was like, no, I don't think I want to sleep at the front of the house. So, yeah, so I went through a period then of, okay, like I'm really not okay with this. I'm not okay with the thought of having to go to court. This has happened. Are they connected? Are they not connected? Is this just a random vandalism? Was it just kids? Like I've got all these things going through my head of what is going on? Like what is happening? So I was like, I can't continue to work at Parramatta. I don't have faith in that commander that he's going to protect me. I'm going to go again. So I applied for a job at the Police Association. I took it was about a 2-year break from the police. You're still a police officer, but I'm a fixer. So I was like, I'm going to go to the Police Association and help everybody else. I can't help myself right now, so I will help everybody else. I'm going to fix the world again.
So for those who don't know what the Police Association is, do you
So
want to give us
it's
a
the
quick...
union for the police.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was successful in getting a position there as an organiser. So I left Parramatta and went to the Police Association. So I was responsible then for Central Metropolitan, which is all your city stations, and also the southern region all the way up to Albury and all around that. So I travelled around helping people. I still lived in the same house. Work had given me a car at that point, so I was okay. I could get around.
Wasn't a Skoda.
It wasn't a Skoda.
Oh, that's good then. That's all right.
I think it was a Camry.
Oh, that's a step up. That's all right. Camry's all right.
It wasn't too bad. It got me from A to B. I was travelling around. I was single, so it didn't matter where I was and what I was doing. I'd stepped away from the undercover world because you couldn't, like with everything that had been going on, I was like, oh, I can't do that. And I remember I was at the shopping centre in Wollongong. I'd been to Wollongong Police Station, called in and checked on the members there, and I was on my way through, I think I was heading down to Wagga, and I'd stopped at the shopping centre because I was like, oh, I'll just stop at the shopping centre and grab some lunch and stuff. And I remember getting a phone call. And the phone call was from an inspector I didn't even know. He identified himself and he's like, look, I'm just giving you a call. We've had information over the lines from one of the jails that there's going to be a home invasion. We're not 100% sure if it's going to be on you, but you've been flagged as a potential target. So I'm in Wollongong buying Subway, I think it was. What the hell is going on in my life? My car's been torched. Now someone wants to do a home invasion. Is it all linked to the staircase?
Bloody staircase.
The staircase. So, and the things that you go through, like how do I deal with that? And I was lucky. I had a really good support network of friends and stuff that sort of kept me on the right path of like, okay, like we can talk about it. We don't have to talk about it. But I wouldn't talk about it. I was just, I'm okay. Just keep going. Go and fix all the problems in central, metropolitan and southern regions. Got this.
Got this. Fix everyone else's problems.
Fix everyone else's problems.
Yeah.
And that's what I did for 18 months. I didn't end up having to go to court. My house didn't get invaded. And yeah, I just was, you know what, I'm going to fix everybody's problem. Not going to fix myself. I'm not going to speak up and say I'm not okay, but I'm going to help everyone else.
Wow. And this all came to a head, obviously, when you left the police force and you had...
So I still went back. So I was at the union for 18 months doing that. And then I met my husband, ex-husband, sorry, whilst I was doing that work with the police association, and he was stationed down south. And I decided, rightio, I'm going to see where this goes. And I was successful in getting positioned down in Wagga. And yeah, then we got married in 2013, I think. I should remember this, but I've wiped it from my memory.
Yeah, 2013.
It's an excellent. So we got married in 2013 and I moved down to Wagga and as a general duty sergeant down there, but I also did some detective sergeant work down there as well. So getting back into life, I moved right away from undercover work then because he didn't not want me to do it, but he certainly wasn't okay with, well, where are you going and what are you doing?
Which I think would be natural for any husband.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. As hard as
I
would
think
be
it'd be
knowing,
natural for any human being.
Yeah, which as hard as it would be to like know coming into the relationship that that's what you did and things like that, I think it would still be very hard. I can look from a personal kind of side for me. If my partner or my wife was like that and she was in a position where she was doing dangerous work, like as you were, especially given obviously like we've said the stuff that had occurred up until this point, it would only be natural for me to be like, do you maybe want to think about doing something else maybe?
Stacking shelves at Woolies,
Yeah.
paper delivery, anything.
Like desk work, you know. Remember the white picket
100%.
fence thing that you said?
The flower bed.
Yeah, the flower bed. Yeah, no. So down there I went and look, I had a couple of great years down at Wagga. It was very different to policing in the western suburbs. It was isolated. Wagga's a big town. I don't know if you know Wagga, but it's a big central. It's like a city in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But there's no support. So if I was in Mount Druitt and I called urgent, which is like get here really quickly and help me, cops would come from everywhere. They'd come from Blacktown, St Mary's, Penrith, and you'd have 50 cops within minutes. If you call urgent in Wagga, you might get one.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
There's certainly no helicopter. There's definitely no dog squad. And the riot squad, they just didn't even exist. So you were isolated. So
it was a handle yourself type of thing.
it was very much back to you're going to talk your way out of this because that's all you've got.
You were good at that though.
Yeah, I talk a lot. I think we've realised that. So yeah, I was a supervisor down there. I had a great team. I had some like great kids that came through and really had settled in. Like I was happily married. I was like I had a dog. Life was getting better. Still no picket fence, but I was getting there. And then in 2014, I had my eldest son, Noah, And I think I had 6 months off work, but after 6 months I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to go back to work. Like, yeah, parenting's cool, but let's go back there where the fun is. So I went back to work, moved into a detective's role there, had some really good investigations, and then towards the end of my time in Wagga, I was pregnant with my youngest son, Bailey, and I got called to a job. I was the supervisor at the showground. And I went to the showground. I took another car crew with me. They were 2 young kids, early 20s. And we got there because a gentleman had said that he was being harassed, which is run-of-the-mill
Normal,
job,
yeah.
just off we go to the showground. And we got there and he was there. And he was telling us about these kids that were harassing him. There was no one as far as the eye could see. It was 2:30 in the morning, I think. And he was so drunk, but he was a functioning alcoholic. So he was actively pouring his 700 ml bottle of vodka into his 1.25 litre bottle of Coke. Didn't drop a single drop, but couldn't stand up.
Wow, that's talent.
It's very impressive.
Wow.
I struggle when I'm sober.
Fair enough.
And I remember talking to him and saying, there's no one here. Like, you're effectively wasting our time. There's no one here. And if I look back at that now, I probably could have handled it better, because at that point he changed. And he had his caravan towards the back of the show, like towards the edge of the showground, and my car was behind me, and then the 2 younger cops were like to the other side of me. And he walked away from us towards his caravan, and instinctively you start to walk back, which is what we both, like I did and the 2 younger cops did. And he came out of the caravan with a machete and a chef's knife and started running at us. So you trained, obviously, to face the threat, but by that point I was far enough back that I could retreat, and I got into the car and got out of there, and so did the other cops. And then we spent the next probably hour negotiating with him, and eventually he was arrested. No one got hurt. But I remember going home that night, or that next morning, at 6:30 in the morning, and sitting in my eldest son's room. He was still asleep, thinking, like, what are you doing? Like, this kid needs a parent. Like, is this really where you want to be? Like, you're pregnant. Some guy's just run after you with a machete. You've got a kid at home. You're emotionally detached. Like, what are you doing? And that, I think, that was late 2016, where I had recognised now that I was cutting myself off from emotions and normality and functioning. And even though I had those support networks around me, I was seeing a psychologist, and yes, I was doing all of the things that I had to do, but was I doing them to get better, or was I doing them to tick a box?
Okay.
And I was doing them to tick a box so that I could keep functioning and I could keep portraying what I needed to portray to do what I had to do. So 2017, January 2017, I had my youngest son, Bailey. He was 8 weeks preemie, probably due to all of the stress that I was going through, but that'll never be proven. He spent a long time in special care. He's got cerebral palsy, but he's completely functioning, absolutely no issues. Like, he's doing really well. But I knew then that something had to change, and I needed to speak up about where I was and what was going on, and that I was not okay anymore.
And that obviously led to you then
being
leaving the
medically
police.
discharged.
Yeah.
So I spoke up and I started going through the process. I was allowed to continue seeing my own psychologist and psychiatrist, but that then started the process of exiting the police, which, it's not a great process.
I can imagine. Yeah, you obviously mentioned a little bit before with regards to obviously the programs that they had.
Yeah.
It was very much outsourced by the police force, so it wasn't necessarily very personal, like you were saying.
No.
And tick a box kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I look back at the EAP, I know it's a great service, and if it's used properly, it'd be great. But I was tick the box. I'm not going to connect with you. I just need to be here. Move along. So, wasn't good.
So that's a bit bullshit, I reckon.
Well, I
So
suppose
then, yeah,
it's a personal choice, like you say.
No, but like there's nothing there for them. They just tick the box. You know,
I think it's changing now.
Yeah.
It is changing.
It's changing
good.
more and more nowadays, like with obviously the push in mental health, obviously, and the light that is being shone on that particular field. Companies and organizations are forced more and more to have more tools and more strategies to combat those kind of things. So I think it would be very different nowadays, in 2024 to when it was in 2018 when you went through it. I think even in just 6 years.
Yeah. Things are continually improving. I still do know a lot of police, and I still think a lot more can be done. So when I went through the process of exiting, I was obviously pretty unwell. My marriage broke down. My younger son was not well. I was not well. And so my mum was in Singleton at the time, and she would travel back and forward to Wagga to try and help me where she could.
Yep.
I had a really good support network in Wagga, but I couldn't function properly either. So that's when I ended up moving back to Singleton.
And you have a good support in Singleton?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
awesome.
All my family's in Singleton, and I've still got
happy days.
heaps of friends in Singleton. So that was that's why I came back to Singleton. But I started the process with obviously exiting the police, and you're pushed into an insurance space, which it makes you feel like a number. So the whole way through my career, I was like, "You're Mel, like you're your number,
Sergeant
you
Barlow,
like you mean something. Like people look up to you, you make a difference. Like no one's going to forget you, are they? Yeah, they forget you pretty quick, literally overnight. So then I started the process with the insurance companies, and it actually led to me suing the New South Wales Police because I really struggled with the pressure that was put on me by the insurance companies to be okay when I was not okay. So I identified that, okay, I need to be okay and I need to get better, but this is not helping. So I needed to distance myself from that process, which I did, and that's when I started to get better.
That's amazing. I mean, like you say, just that personal journey of you realizing that it needs to be me who makes the choice to get better.
Yeah.
I think that's where it all starts. All healing, all kind of progression forward, all growth starts from that position of me saying, I need to do better here.
Yeah. So, and I needed to do better. I was a single mum. I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I needed to be there for them, and I needed to get myself back to a point where I could support them, where I could make a difference in their life and make sure they had the life that they deserved. They didn't need a mother that was emotionally disconnected and, functioning, but not really. So I was like, right, you're going to sort yourself out. You've got your support network around you. You've got your strategies in place.
What were those strategies?
To actually talk about it. So my strategies were to actually go to my psychologist, go to my counsellor, talk to the people around me and build that resilience that I needed and start to move forward. So I used those tools and started to rebuild my life. I initially became a swimming instructor. 10 out of 10, don't recommend.
Wow.
Fair
I would have never had thought that you would have been a swimming instructor.
When I tell people I was a swimming instructor, they're like, why would you do that?
Yeah. Such a
You've
weird
got
swing.
all of this experience and you went, swimming instructor. So I did that for a little while successfully because I like to always be successful with what I do. And then I was talking to a friend of mine who was a solicitor, and she said to me, would you consider investigating again? And I was like, at that point, I was like, no way. Like, I am never going back to that. And then I was
Fast forward.
Yeah, fast forward. I was like, actually, you need to do something you can do around your kids and you need to do something you know how to do. And I'd gotten myself to a point where I was good. Like I was in a good place. I still had walls up. I still had a facade, which look, to this day I still do, of you're invincible. But I was in a good place. Like I knew myself, I was okay. So I was like, yep, rightio, let's do this. So I started doing private investigations again, got my license, was doing some contracting work and progressed that through to full-time work. And now obviously I'm a team leader leading a state of investigators. So, yeah.
That's huge.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
that is.
Congratulations on the journey.
Yeah.
It's been...
So I think my point to all of it is that no matter how dark it gets, you can succeed after the police.
That's literally what I was going to ask you. I was going to say, if you had one bit of advice from someone who was listening that was like, I resonate with you, Mel, what would that advice be?
Yeah, there is so much more to you than the police. So
That is awesome.
And the skills that you have from the police are absolutely transferable. A lot of people will tell you that they're not, but you're a HR representative, you're a leader, you're all but a legal representative to people. Like you have so many skills that you can use in so many fields, and most of them are transferable. But you've been in such an insular environment that you don't realise that until you're out. So, so obviously I've gone back into investigations, but I still have that fix-it mentality. So I'm also in local government as well because
Oh,
I
God.
can
So
make
you're
the
a
world
politician. Oh, she's a politician, Shane.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. Honestly, congratulations on your colourful career. It's been really cool.
Yeah, congratulations. I mean, congratulations not only on the career, but congratulations on the personal journey as well. I know, like you say, it's been a long road and you're aware of things that you need to work on. And I think that's such a beautiful place to be because you are in a position where you're just growing every single day. So congratulations and thank you for sharing your journey with us and for everyone that's listening. I mean, I'm sure, even like you were saying, I think it's not just the police. I think it's any career. Yep. You can transfer from any career and you're not just limited to whatever it is that you're doing. There's so much more to you.
100%.
So thank you for that message and for sharing with us. It is a beautiful message that you can share. So thank you.
I do have a question. Do you miss the police and what you've done in the past? Like, do you miss that now that you're out?
I don't miss the police, but I do miss the people.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And is it true that donuts are a cop's favourite food? Okay, fair enough.
Stop.
I just
Look, I
Or
am
is that a
partial to a
cliche?
caramel donut.
Okay,
but
fair enough. Hey, that's for our listeners. I was asking because they're probably going, I wonder if the cops really like donuts. No, that's
And
awesome.
no, they don't get free Maccas either.
That's
Well, then there's no
bullshit.
point to being a cop.
No, there's not. You don't no donuts and no free Maccas. That's bullshit.
Well,
no, that's awesome.
Thank you so much for obviously taking the time to be with us today, Mel, and for sharing your journey and for being personal and open with us. I don't think there's a person out there that would listen to this and not resonate with some aspect of your journey. Thank you for sharing the crazy stories that you have.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate it, Mel.
It's been great. So who knows? There might be scope for you to come back on and share some more.
Let's not get too excited.
Yeah.
You're always welcome.
We
Trust
might
us.
start a true crime version of Leave a Light On.
Yeah. So that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But she can use some of her aliases. So she might not be Mel she might come back on as Rachel.
Yeah, come back as
Never know.
Rachel. Who knows?
You never
That's
know.
awesome. We really appreciate it. We really hope that the message out there for police is, speak up. You guys aren't alone.
Yeah,
And,
thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. And we obviously hope you well. Wish you well. Hope you well.
I am well now.
Yes. Wish you well for the journey moving ahead. And all the best for your career, obviously, in your PI and local council.
Thank you.
Get out there and do the fixing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Keep fixing.
Vote Mel. Singleton people, vote Mel. Vote Mel.
So thank you. Yeah. Chev, thank
Awesome.
you.
No, thanks
Obviously,
again.
It's been a great episode.
Oh, it has.
It's
Really
been
enjoyed
awesome.
it, so.
And we will continue.
Yep.
Next one. Really excited. I think we've got some really cool guests coming up, which has been great. But
I think you've got a couple lined up, which is I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So you go out and have a good week. Continue your personal growth journey as we go on as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Always.
Keep growing, keep learning. And from us here at Leave a Light On podcast, it's always Leave a Light On.
Yeah, and stay safe.
Stay safe.
Hey, thanks for listening. We hope you've managed to gain some insight from today's episode. Jump onto our socials and reach out. And until next time, wherever you are, let's leave a light on.